Major League Baseball essentially shrank the strike zone and didn't tell anyone about it. They told umpires, as they have a new labor agreement with them, they'll claim they're following the same definition. That is true. But the way that they are grading umpires has changed. They have a buffer zone around the edges of the strike zone that has now shrunk significantly. They used to give them 2 inches of a buffer zone, and now it's 3/4 of an inch. So that in turn affects the accuracy of how they're graded, which in turn affects the way that the strike zone is being evaluated by umpires on a pitch by pitch basis. It has led to more overall accuracy. That's great. 88.2% overall accuracy is the best we've seen in the StatCast era, which tracks pitches like that. That era started in 2016 when the number was 83.6. These are good things. Main problem here, Kratz, they forgot to tell everyone. So The Athletic did a banger job on this. Ken Rosenthal, Jason Stark, Eno Saris are the 3 that are listed here on the article. We're going to talk to Ken coming up. And many more, actually. They say more on the article as well. So I want to give credit to all of them for putting that out there. They have plenty of people on the record that gave their names, plenty of people that spoke anonymously, players, coaches, teams that all said, nope, they're lying. They didn't tell us, even though they said they did.
I don't have all the managers' numbers like Ken and Eno and all those guys do. But every one of the guys I texted had no idea. No, I haven't found anybody that knew about the change. I don't see, like, the bigger issue here is Major League Baseball trying to slide this through. Is it better that they're getting the strike zone correct? Yes. But the bigger issue is negotiations are coming up here soon. The new CBA is coming up here soon. And if you're going to be doing mischievous, nefarious little things as Major League Baseball, how are you supposed to go to the negotiating table as a players association and go, I'm sure they're going to be straight across the board here. They're going to be super honest with us. And it's just like, why would we not tell the players who this affects, the pitchers, the hitters who this affects, and just keep it secret? I don't understand this at all.
Yeah, and this is something very important. I mean, I think this going under the rug is something that needs to be talked about a lot more. I mean, we're talking about a strike zone where this last year they're talking about, having an automated strike zone. They're talking about getting rid of umpires. They're talking about, electronics and this and that. I think this is leading into something, could be leading to something even bigger. Like, did they want this auto to come out? I don't know. Maybe they did. This is something that maybe we'll see some more stuff come out. But, you get those 3 inches as a baseball. You take a baseball. I don't have one in my hand, but as you measure, it's almost 3 inches, from east to west. I mean, it's a lot of space and opportunity to throw strikes with. And now to minimize that strike zone with the baseball to make it 0.75 instead of 2 inches off in the buffer zone. I always complained about that. I always talk, like Phil Cuzzy and, Wendelstedt and those guys. And I was like, man, you guys are getting a lot off the plate. He's like, no, that's the buffer zone. They always kept saying it. So I knew about the buffer zone a while ago with Joe West and all those guys. So I'm like, I don't know how you're getting graded well on that, because to me, that's a ball. And, the human element I still love and I still factor in, and I don't want that ever to leave. But, with talking to players and reading the article here, I'd be a little frustrated. I would, just knowing that, why am I not getting that call? Because I feel like it might be nipping the corner. If not, it's right there. But they locked it in, up, down, east, west. They are finding ways to, help the batter out more.
Some people are going to sit there at home and go, 2 inches? Who really cares? That is a monstrous difference. If we overlaid the new strike zone and the old strike zone, and you put all contact around those edges that's now eliminated, the contact, it's something ridiculous. Like every half an inch contact out of the zone, the exit velocity, the hit probability goes down exponentially. Like it means you're chasing out of the zone, and that's why pitchers want to stay on the corners so that they can get the pitches off the barrel of the bat. Are there cases? Absolutely. Can Shohei get on top of a pitch above the buffer zone? Yes. But the hitters that keep the ball in the strike zone and only swing at those are normally the better hitters. And you eliminate that buffer zone, now it's going to be more of an offensive game, but it's also going to be able to transition us into the challenge system next year. And I think they're trying to lock in where that border is, because just a little bit of the ball hits. Okay, so that means if a little bit of the ball hits here, all of the ball was off of the zone. And if you make that now 2 inches, now that pitch is here and it still touches the buffer zone. So I'm glad that they cleaned this up. Just be upfront about it.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees that they want the strike zone to continue to be as accurate as possible. For example, Christian Walker is on the record in this article saying we always wanted to get better. But then you have Travis d'Arnaud, Angels catcher, on the record a couple times in this article talking about how they basically had to do their own homework because they started looking out and being like, wait, the zone seems a little bit different. Let's do some homework on this. And then word starts spreading and starts to turn into a story. Apparently, there was an anonymous player who said he was talking to an ump, and the ump goes, "What do you think of the new strike zone?" And he's like, "What?" That's how word starts to spread.
Come again?
But think about the competitive advantage, even for the first month, right? This is a game of inches, a game of games that can separate you from a playoff team and not, right? One game. We see it every year. So there might have been some teams that knew about this a little bit earlier. Not every single player, person, everyone else found out about it at that same exact time.
Yeah.
You have the right as a league to maintain competitive integrity, to tell all teams, players, managers, etc. about what's going on in the offseason when this is being decided. And if you're saying you told everyone and everyone is saying you didn't, very respectable, commendable people, you did not communicate it, or you did not communicate it properly. So some people might have found out about this the first week of the season, and you have some people that just found out about this when the article hit this morning.
Can I just say something? Why didn't they just come out with it when they figured it out? I don't understand. Like, hey, boom, here, hey, just so you know, new rule to MLB, the buffer zone has changed. Why is everything such a secret? I don't.
They claim it wasn't. They claim they told everyone.
Oh, yeah. Come on, man. It should have been worldwide. It should have been news. It should have been news.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's an arrogancy of Major League Baseball in the sense of, we don't need to see. We don't need to tell them. We don't need to tell them everything. Or is it a strategic thing saying, you know what, you guys you're not necessarily upfront with everything. We don't need to be upfront with everything because we are the head. In the sense of like, oh, we're the boss here. Like, you'll be fine. You'll figure it out later.
I think he's confusing Major League Baseball with The Godfather. You're saying the Don sometimes doesn't need to tell everybody about the business going on. No. But sometimes there are a lot of similarities with the league.
There you go.
A lot of their favorite movies are mafia movies. But I will tell you this, it's not supposed to be like that, okay?
Hey, we're
not going to see Scott after today.
Hey, well, we found a new name for this new thing we call, like the Homer Bailey and those names that you can use. This is the Bruce Buffer Zone.
The Bruce Buffer Zone.
The Bruce Buffer Zone.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, like, hey, it's a little Chili Davis in here. It's a little cold.
Yeah, it's a little on. We're teetering on the Bruce Buffer right now.
I like that. Last thing, and then we're going to get to Ken Rosenthal on it. I just wanted to make sure that people know you should check out the article. It's lengthy and it's worth it. It's really well done. But there are quotes in here from big league managers who you know. Dave Roberts asked straight up about this. Quote, "No, I didn't know that." Tito Francona asked if he remembered being told this at the winter meetings, which is what MLB claimed. Quote, "I don't believe so. I don't remember that. That doesn't mean they didn't because I can barely remember yesterday. My understanding was it wasn't a secret, but I don't remember them sharing it." Mike Schultz, who is on the ball. I mean, he is a pretty serious gamer, okay? He is not missing something in a meeting. He's going to take notes in a meeting, and then he is going to think about it for days and then strategize it. And that's why this affects pitch sequencing, game calling, the whole deal. And it's why it rattled teams when they didn't find out about it. I'll give you Schultz quote in the article. "I don't remember having any communication with anybody at any point in time saying, hey, we're going to tighten it up. Not at all. I tried to pay attention during the meetings. I would have thought it would grab my attention. I would probably share that with his coaching staff, which
Yeah.
of course would have shared that with players like
Players.
Codfather in spring training.
100%.
Mind blown on this one.
Kratz, let's talk about the #1 recommended dermatologist hair growth supplement brand. And it's a brand that you are just starting your journey with.
I'm using. What about 1.5, 2 months into my journey? It's a 6-month journey. See what I can get. See a little thicker, fuller everywhere, filling it out. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I'm very excited to see the Nutrafol results with Kratz. And don't show us your hat yet, okay? You got to stay tuned through this journey. And if you want to join Kratz for this journey, you can start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering FT listeners $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code FOUL. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code FOUL. That's Nutrafol.com. Promo code FOUL.
Ken, great story. Really, really well put together by you and the team over at The Athletic. So what can you tell us about it? And also, were you as shocked as I was when you first started hearing about this and the lack of communication with the league and everyone else involved in actually playing the sport?
Yes, and I'll give you the genesis of this. During spring training, or maybe it was recently, it was actually more recently than that, players came to Jason Stark and said, hey, something's up with the zone, and it's smaller, it's different, we don't get it. Can you look into this? So Jason started looking into it and found that, yes, there is a difference in the buffer zone, the part of the well, it's not even part of the strike zone. It's around the strike zone. It's been reduced from 2 inches all the way around to 3/4 of an inch all the way around. This was something that was agreed to by MLB and the umpires in the umpires' newest CBA. So, okay, we'll get to that in a second and why they did it and the effects of it. But part of the story is about how, yes, as you mentioned, Scott, it took so many people by surprise. Now, MLB claims that it communicated it properly to pretty much all the parties involved. And that may be true in MLB's eyes, but clearly there was a breakdown in communication at some point here because we talked to club officials that were not aware of this. We talked to managers, as you quoted, that were not aware of this. We have players on the record and managers on the record saying this kind of took them by surprise. Not kind of, took them by surprise. So that to me is one thing here. But the overriding thing, and really the most important thing for the sake of the game, is that this is a good thing. It's a good thing because the rulebook strike zone is going to be called more accurately. When you shrink the size of the buffer zone, and let me explain what that is. The buffer zone is the area that, as I said, is a couple of inches or was around the strike zone. But that was an area in which an umpire, if he had a missed call in that area, it would not count against him in the evaluation. And that was the change in the umpire's CBA. That, yes, the buffer zone would shrink, and that was an area in which they could be judged less harshly if they missed a call there. But they felt this would get closer to the rulebook definition of the strike zone, and everyone agreed with it. So umpires agreed to be evaluated differently, but that has caused a change in the way the game is being played. Now, MLB says it's not a significant change. The players that we talked to said maybe not, but it's certainly something. And I talked to some front office people as well who said, hey, wait a second. Because the zone is being called tighter, we have to change our framing models. We have to look at things completely differently. Maybe we have to get more patient hitters because there are fewer strikes being thrown. Now, again, MLB insists that there are not fewer strikes being thrown and that it's essentially a wash. But it's just an interesting story from the perspective of, one, this change has taken place, and the change was made in order to get the strike zone called more accurately and consistently. Good thing. The issue is that obviously a lot of people who should have known about it didn't know about it, despite MLB's claims that, yes, we told them about it.
You make a lot of really good points. Now, my question to you would be, I know you've talked to some players. Have you talked to catchers specifically about this? Because it's not only pitchers, but also catchers are the ones that are getting away with some kind of frames and all that kind of stuff. Like, is it changing the way they're catching now?
I don't know that we asked that question specifically, but Travis Darno is quoted in the article as saying everyone's zone has shrunk. And that is clearly what has happened here. Now, it's not, again, a change in the definition of the strike zone. It's really important to know that. The actual strike zone by the rule book is exactly the same. The difference is in that buffer zone in which umpires are allowed to essentially miss. That zone has shrunk from 2 inches around, as I said, to 3/4 of an inch around. And that's where the difference is from before. So we did not ask catchers specifically about the framing aspect, but club officials told us, yes, we've changed our framing models in the ways we've evaluated catchers or started to evaluate catchers because we have noticed a difference. One team told me in the last 2 weeks, they've been starting to ask these questions. What's going on? How do we adapt? Clearly, teams were caught by surprise.
Why does Major League Baseball feel like rules, implementations, or stuff like this, like implementing things that actually affect the game, don't need to be not more negotiated, but just, is it a big brother complex by Major League Baseball, or is it avoiding confrontation? And we're just trying to do what's best for the game, and yet they're hurting it.
Eric, I don't know the answer to that. My thinking here is what should have happened is that MLB, much like it did when it rolled out ABS in spring training, should have put this out there in the public, saying, hey, here's what's going on. This is what they did with ABS. It was very clear. It was very well publicized. Here's what it's going to be this spring. We're testing it, etc. They should have done the same with this. Said, listen, here's what's going on. We're shrinking the buffer zone. The goal of shrinking the buffer zone is to make the calls by umpires at home plate on balls and strikes more consistent, more accurate. That's the goal. It's a goal that's being accomplished. You see the accuracy numbers right there. MLB says this is the most accurate balls and strikes have been called in the StatCast era. This is a good thing. This is something that, yes, pitchers would have objected to and will object to because obviously it's harder to throw a strike or a called strike. But at the same time, hitters love it. Obviously, they want the zone called more accurately. And it's something that all fans could understand and embrace if it was just presented that way. And the mere fact that so many people who should have known say they didn't know, that's a problem. And it's a problem MLB might not want to acknowledge, but it's a problem. And you're right, Eric, it undermines what should be a good thing. More consistent and accurate ball strike calls.
Is this a forward thinking by MLB by saying, hey, we're most likely transitioning to the challenge system? And I know this was put out in the winter meeting, so this was even before the challenge system was implemented in spring training. Is this going to make it an easier transition to the challenge system? Or is it, hey, if we shrink this, umpires are getting it right, maybe we don't need the challenge system?
No, I expect we're going to have the challenge system. And I'm not sure this was done at all with ABS in mind. It seems to me that it was done simply to get balls and strikes called more accurately. Now, the zone with ABS is going to be more stringent, I guess you would say, right? At least we'll have a very defined zone, as we do now, but it is defined by written words as opposed to a machine. So I don't think the two are linked, but at the same time, it raises questions for ABS as well. Is there going to be a buffer zone with ABS? How is this going to work? And we'll ask those questions at the appropriate time.
And I mean, the league's been around for a while. They've got plenty of PR. This shouldn't have just been a memo to players, teams, coaches, etc. It should have been announced to everyone. We're fans of the game. Just let us know. This would have been great off-season talk, and it's a positive story. So that part is crazy to me, Ken. I'm wondering if there's any aftermath to this. I know you got a comment here too, but if anybody, you think is going to complain, because there's probably some people that figured this out the first week of the season. Now there's some people that are learning about this on May 2nd.
I don't know what the aftermath is going to be, if any. I can't predict that, Scott. Now, as for what you're saying about putting this out there, because obviously it's had an effect, the league's position is it's not that meaningful an impact. And they were basically saying it's not that big a deal. It's a change, yes, but it's improved the ball strike accuracy, and it's not that It's not something that should be sensationalized in their mind, not something that is that big a thing. Okay, but I'm with you, Scott. Why not be more transparent? Why not put it
Yeah.
out there? What do you have to be ashamed about here? You're doing something good. You're trying to make the game better. Tell people. I don't really understand the problem.
It is not the CIA. This is not some covert operation. This is just like you talked about on Fair Territory the other day. This is baseball. This is entertainment. And this is a good story. And for fans or anybody, the league that doesn't think that this is something that affects everyone, you should read the story. There's game planning, pitch sequencing, everything, right? People just want to know what the rules are and how umps are being evaluated plays into that, so much so that there's an ump that told a player, oh, did you hear about the strike zone changing? What do you think about that? Even just the way he phrased it, I think, tells the story of how the umps have to think about how they're evaluating the zone. That's why, to me, it's such a big deal. Kratz, what do you got?
Well, I mean, you talk about game plans. I just was thinking about what you said. There is a paper hung up for a left-handed batter and a right-handed batter, how umpire zones change. Not that they would have been able to build that model before the season, and that model is always changing, but it's based on thousands, tens of thousands of pitches, and that's hung up before every game along with the pitcher scouting report too. So if people think, they don't really pay attention to it, there's somebody that has that job for sure. Ken, do you think this improves the chances of, or I shouldn't say improves because that sounds like I want a work stoppage. Does this increase the chances of a work stoppage?
I won't go that far. To me, Eric, the chances of a work stoppage are high regardless of this. What I will say is this, that throughout the game's history since the inception of the union, there has been obviously labor tension. And one of the manifestations of that tension has been a disconnect at times between the league office and players as represented by the union. This, to me, kind of shows that there's still a disconnect. At least in this example, there was a disconnect. And it doesn't seem to me, and this is my opinion now, it doesn't seem to me that players were taken into account enough here. And the league can say, yes, we communicated to the clubs, we tried to communicate to the players, we did this, we did it properly. They can say that, but it didn't happen, or at least didn't happen successfully enough. And one of the criticisms the league has faced from players is they don't have a feel for us. They don't get it. And at times that has been a fair criticism. In this particular case, it seems to me that it is a fair criticism as well. They just did not see that if you're going to do something, even if you think it's small, even if you think it's good, and it is, you got to let the players know that the world is changing for them. They're the ones on the field. They're the ones playing your game. They are your product. And they have to be taken into full account and full consideration.
Hey everybody, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.